And now I'd like to welcome to the program Alex McFarland. He is a religion and culture expert. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Alex. I want to start here. Let's get your thoughts on the situation that is occurring in major cities around the country.
Well, it's very sad. It's tragic because it's tragic in light of the loss of George Floyd's life, but it's tragic in light of just the further unraveling of the country that we're all watching before us. And by the way, thanks for having me on. It's a great honor to be on. Um, I'm holding up a copy of Why We Can't Wait, Dr. King's manifesto for the Civil Rights Movement. And, I've interviewed a number of people that marched with Dr. King, and I know Dr. Alveda King, his niece, who was there the Sunday afternoon that the Civil Rights Movement was, first envisioned one day after a church service. And I know Dr. King and Fred Shuttlesworth and the great personalities behind the Civil Rights Movement. They would have no part in this looting and lawlessness that we're watching before us today.
Do you feel like it's being used as the death of George Floyd being used as an excuse to just go out, terrorize, destroy, and steal?
I think it is. I mean, no doubt, amidst the thousands of protesters and rioters, there are some people that are angry. And, to a degree, I understand. I understand the frustration that they feel that, all they know is that the police are brutal and, minorities and specifically Black Americans are not getting justice. Their civil rights are being undermined and their lives are being lost. And to that degree of angst and frustration, we can understand. But let me say, I do think there are people that have a vested interest. There are people and organizations and foreign and domestic forces that have a vested interest in the country becoming a place of lawlessness and disorder, because into the disorder, the liberal progressives and many within the Democrat Party, they want to introduce new order. And so, let me quote a person, a civil rights activist before Dr. King was a former slave named Francis Grimke. And Francis Grimke said during the time of the emancipation years in the middle 19th century, he said, as the South secedes from the Union, something even worse is happening. The entire country seceding from our founding principles, the Sermon on the Mount, the Ten Commandments, the natural law written on our heart. And Grimke, a former slave, later a Presbyterian minister, said, if America goes forward without God and morality, we're prescribing our own death. And he said, we've made a covenant with hell. So my point in sharing that is this: look, part of the reason that we are a country that feels like it's on the brink of anarchy at any given moment, we need God. We need God. And I want to say to Biden, the presumptive nominee of the Democrat Party, Joe Biden, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, the militant secularist socialists that now run the Democrat Party, do you know who they would demonize as deplorables nowadays? Abraham Lincoln, all of the founders, Moses, Abraham, Augustine, Aquinas, the great spiritual and moral thinkers of history would stand categorically against the anarchy that's being encouraged by, I think about the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, who, wouldn't let people go to church, kept things on lockdown, but once the riots come, suddenly it's open doors. People like her want this country to be in a state of chaos because they can further impose their socialism as long as we're in the disorder that we're witnessing.
And you said something very important there. We need God. Do you think we're hearing that enough from our leaders that are out there in the forefront right now?
I do not think we're hearing it enough. Thank the Lord for President Trump, whom I have met. Uh, I thank God. Let me say this: the only reason that I would, you know, cling to a little bit of hope that God is not done with America is that we have Donald Trump as president right now. I mean, we all know, look, let's be honest, if Hillary Clinton were president during the COVID pandemic, our Constitution and sovereignty would have already been surrendered to the UN and the World Health Organization. We're not hearing enough preachers speak to their people. And I mean, I've pastored 3 churches and spoken in more than 2,000 in all 50 states. And let me say to all the ministers out there, studies show that at least 74% of all your congregants want their clergy to speak to moral, social, political issues, but only about 12% do. I thank God for courageous voices like Franklin Graham and Dr. Alveda King and our president and vice president and some leaders, Robert Jeffers, my friend in Texas, but 700,000 ordained clergy. We need all of the pastors to get some courage and speak out and say, look, lying, looting, violence, vandalism, God is watching. God is watching. And we need the 10 Commandments told to our kids. By the way, I want to say to moms and dads, I know there's a lot here on our plate, but look, maybe one of the silver linings of this otherwise dark cloud called COVID may be public education. The stranglehold that they've had on the youth of America might be broken. Where in public schools, and I've spoken in many of them, but in public schools, kids can't be taught about the Decalogue. Oh, they can be taught about Ramadan and transgenderism, but they're not allowed to be taught about the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments that the founders, going all the way back to Bradford and Plymouth, believed and built our nation on. And so this is a time that leaders must speak. We urgently need to pray and to intercede for our country. Dr. King and his nonviolent civil rights movement accomplished what this group of writers never could. I mean, all of this violence is not going to accomplish anything. How do you save the country? By weakening it. You don't.
Right.
We need
Right.
God
Exactly.
to help us.
Exactly.
And we need people to speak out.
Alex, thank you for your time. Good insight. We appreciate it.